Okay, so the first step is actually the part that I would do as a site administrator. So you guys wouldn't do this part, but you would submit to me and request that you would have to create categories. Okay, so I'll show it to you, but it's not the step that you would do. Okay, so to start this whole process, to be able to create a dynamic list, the first step that you have to do is create categories. And so if you guys come up with one, like you say, I created news and pubs, but let's say you said, Joyce, you said, hey, I want to create a dynamic list of fire or construction or whatever, or Mary, you said, you want to create one respirators. Then you would just submit the request to me and say, hey, can we create this category? And once I create the category, then you're off and running on your own. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, Tanya.
I created two categories. I did one for news and publications, and so you can see them both here. And then after I created the categories, what happens next is, and I did these 2 pages here. So the what's new page is where I'm displaying the dynamic list. And so this is it here. Okay. And so what you do basically is after I go out and I create the categories, then the next step is go into the page that I want to add to my list. And once I go to that page, those categories will appear here on the page. You see them here? And so the dynamic list that I'm creating, I choose what I want to add to the list. Do I want it to be a research round news? Is it an e-news? Is it a total worker health news? And also after I created the category for you guys, like I created news as a category and I put these 3 items, you have the ability to then add a new one. So let's say you said, hey, I want to add some other news item in here. So maybe you have a newsletter for MPPTL, or have a newsletter for fire, and you want to add that here and create it as one of the news options. You have the ability to do that. And so that's that. Then as you're building your dynamic list, the image that will draw comes from the iconic image field. So that's the image it's going to pull in. So if you want to use the image option, you would include that image here because that's where it's going to pull it from. And then in terms of the description, you have 2 options. You can either use the descriptor text, so whatever you add here, or you can allow it to dynamically pull in the first few lines at the top of your page. So those are your 2 options. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? Still tracking with me?
How do you set that if you want it to dynamically pull in the lines? Is there a radio button that you click somewhere?
Yeah, so I'll show you now. So that's what you do just in your page that you want to include. Okay, so I'll show you now how to actually build the dynamic list. Okay, so the first step is just to add it to the page wherever you want it. So basically I just go here and I choose right here, dynamic list. Okay, and so once I do that, then I build it from there. I'll get rid of this one because I already created one. And so it's up here. So once I add it to my page that I want it to display on, because this is the page that I'm building, the page that I want it to display on. So once I do that, then I decide what I want. So in this case, the different categories that I showed you before that were on the pages, you would choose it here. And so if I wanted a pubs dynamic list, I would choose that. If I want a news one, which I want the new one, so I choose that category. Okay? And then once I choose the taxonomy that I want, then I choose which news items I want to display in my dynamic list. E-news, total worker health, research rounds, so those are all my options. Then I get the option telling it how many do I want to show, and it'll, you can choose here. So I chose just 3. And then the next thing that you can say is the article date. And so I didn't show you guys that. Let me go back and show you that. So the article date field is right here. See that? So if you have something populated there, then you can tell it, I want to filter on the article date or any of these other options. So I chose the article date. That's what I want to filter on. And then the next thing that you're going to choose is, here's where, here's the question you asked, where I start to build, like, what type of style do I want? Do I want a text box? Do I want an image with caption? Or do I want a bulleted list? Those are my different options. I chose text box. And then you get to decide, like, how do I want, what size image do I want? I use the medium crop, but there's other options. You could use small, thumbnail, social, large. And then here's where you decide if you want the descriptor text, which is what I showed you, or do you want it to dynamically pull from the body of your content, or no description. And so I put the descriptor text I wanted to pull because I want to decide what I want to display there rather than it just choosing for me. And then the option of saying, okay, do I want everything grouped together or do I want them individually displayed? And I can show you both. I'll show you the individual first. And then you have the option of going side by side or stacked. And I'll show you both of those options. And then the next one is do you want the system to decide, hey, there's 3 items, so I want them evenly distributed 33%, or do you want to determine how much width you want for each one? And I think fluid is the best option because then it's probably going to be displayed the best. And then you have these other options that you can choose too. And then you have color choices where you can do accent color for the border, or the background, or the content. So there's lots of options. And then the next thing is your layout for the border. So whether you want it to appear top or, and then you have these options, and pretty much, you could probably leave these because it's just decide if it's going to display on all the viewports. And then once you build all of that, before you actually see it in the page, the nice thing is you can preview it here. So see, this is what mine is going to look like if I do individual and I use the medium cropped image with the descriptive text. So that's what my dynamic list would look like. So now I'll show you if I change it and do stacked. So that's what it would look like if they were stacked. And then even there, if I choose the image and I made it small, wow, my guess doesn't do that in the preview because it didn't seem like it changed to me. Or thumbnail. Nope.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. If you do it stacked, does it go full column?
So let's see it in the page, Mary. So I'll do that here.
Okay.
And I'll say okay, and I'll save it. And of course it's buffering because I'm trying to do this. Come on. Have you guys experienced any problems today at all?
I've not yet today.
Yeah, it was sluggish on me earlier.
I had some issues yesterday, but then the whole system went down, but I guess that did that for everybody, so.
Oh, I didn't lose it yesterday.
Oh, yeah, we did yesterday morning, the whole, we lost everything. Skype.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, during the communication meeting.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, come on. So let's see. Make sure it's still stacked. Okay, now that would not be what I would expect to see for stacked. Let me see if I change side by side. But I thought I changed it. Let's see. Yeah, I did change it. Let's see. Oh. Well, see, that's what I would think it would look like. Oh. Huh. So I guess that's what it would look like if it was stacked. It's just closer together. That's interesting. I wouldn't think it would look like that. Because the other option is if I do them as a group, what am I do? Side by side. Then they're like that. So if I group them all together. But the other option I have is I could do them as a list. Huh. So I could do that too. I think the image looks nicer, but you could do a list. Or you can do an image with caption. But then the size of the image is really going to matter because if you do image with caption, sometimes it can overlay it. See? So the size is really going to matter in that case. So that's pretty much it, you guys. And once you do that, you save your page and you're up and running. Do you have questions?
Is this something that you might use on like the What's New page, or like Federal Register notices, or the research rounds where you list, each new issue that's put out? Or
Yeah, I can see a lot of uses actually, Mary. I thought about like What's New would be great. The newsroom page would be great, where we're displaying the 3 videos at the top. Because the good thing about this is I could schedule this page to be published like every day. And so I could tell it that, hey, because as I build new pages, like for instance with the updates, as I build new updates, new press releases, I can include them in this list by selecting the box down here to say, hey, include them in this dynamic list. And then if I schedule, so if I go out here and I schedule the default page of the press release to publish every day, then every time there's a new one, it would automatically add to the page without me ever having to go out and manually edit myself.
And would you set that up to do it at a specific time, or would it just do it automatically? Well, I guess you would set up the defaults or something.
Right. You can set it to publish at a specific time. So let's say I would do it with this page, and I say, hey, I want to publish this page to Deb every morning, or link, or wherever I want to. So here, right here, I would do schedule.
Oh, okay.
I would say, hey, I want this to publish, at this time, and do I want to repeat it daily, monthly, weekly, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
And so then every day, the default page for press releases would go out and just publish, and every time it published, it would grab anything new that was added. And if I said 3 articles, the good news is it would just lop off that last one and add the new one, and continue to display 3 every time. So
you could chop off the bottom of the list in a sense if you chose to, to keep it under, say, 6 items or 4 items or whatever amount you would choose.
Exactly, because it's a pretty powerful tool if you use it in that way, where you're saying, hey, I want to continue to display the most current articles. It's going to manage all that for you by getting rid of the older ones and maintaining the 5 or the 3 or whatever you want, whatever you've chosen.
Yeah, because that's what we do on the newsroom page with that one, we only list, I think it's 5.
Exactly. And so what we could do is if we set up a category where it chose top 5 every time, and we scheduled the newsroom page to publish every morning, then it would only ever list the 5 most current.
Mm-hmm.
And we would never have to update that box, that module on the newsroom page at all. Because right now it's set up as a list box module, but we could change it to make it a dynamic list.
Yeah, that's kind of like what we used to do when, I forget what it was called, to update that box. It used to be something we triggered.
JavaScript.
Yeah, it was something that, as long as you posted it the right way, it would automatically add your last one.
Exactly. And so if we do that here, the same thing. So if we set up all of the, we could do that with the pubs page as well. The way Scott is building all of those in the database, we could do dynamic lists on that page.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I can see a lot of uses. And like I said, even with like the press release homepage, you could do the same thing. Or the e-news homepage, or the Research Rounds homepage. Anywhere where you're creating lists, you could just make them dynamic lists. And so all I would have to be concerned with is creating the most recent article and making sure that I chose the box that added it to the category So each time it published that page again, it would add those entries.
Yeah.
Is there like a link you could send us to so we could like show this to people to try and get them to use it?
What'd you say, Margaret? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Is there like a link to one that's created somewhere that we could like share with people so we could try and get them to use this?
Yeah, this is out already on ZLab, the one I just displayed for you. So yeah, you could totally use this one.
Okay. Could you just send me the link just so I can save it?
Yeah, sure. And then
Thank you.
also, if you want to change something, that's fine too. Like if you wanted to display to them, hey, I want to see it as links, then you can go out and edit this one. It's out in the ZLab, so that's not a problem.
Okay, perfect.
So what else? Are you good? And so like I said, if you think of any categories that you want added, just let me know and I can build them for you. So nothing else? You guys are good?
Yeah, I'm good, Tanya.
I'm good, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. And so the other thing too is if there's anything else that you guys want me to demo, then let me know that too and I can do it. So if you want to do maps next or sortable lists or anything else. Okay?
Okay, that'd be great, Tanya. There are some things that sometimes get confusing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of new features that they're adding all the time, and there's some pretty good stuff out there, some pretty powerful stuff. But if you don't see it in motion, then sometimes it's like, okay, that's a great idea, but, you know. All right, you guys, then, thanks.
Oh, thank you, Tanya. Have a good day.
Have a good day, guys.
You too. Bye.